Yeah, the entire thing is very confusing to me. Like some of his effort in paying like $100 million to recruit ethnic Chinese people from from OpenAI, that made a lot of sense, right? Like you need as many talent as possible, and Alexander Wang is definitely not a talent. He's just talker. But I think like in America, sometimes it's just about talking a big game. This is why this country is going to shit because we reward people for talking a big game and can't back it up.
You mentioned when I ask you, what do you think about AGI, artificial generative intelligence? Are we ever gonna get there? You said we're possibly just 1 or 2 years away. Do you still stand by that?
It's hard to say. So the way I look at it is like the models themselves keep getting more useful, and they're not like I don't think they have intuition at the moment, really, but they're getting there, and I think that it is possible in one over the next year or two, we're gonna get something that's not real AGI, but appears to be AGI to us. Like it appears like if you ask them anything, they can probably do most of the stuff, 99% of the stuff that normal humans can't do. But you still need to be there's still some value. There's still value for for people to be at the other end to know how to use it, how to use the models correctly. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I heard from people who use AI to do coding, and they basically say, yeah, you definitely need a pair of human eyes to make sure to correct all the mistakes that AI is making in the coding. What the AI did, it just make the process of coding easier, because you take out all the groundwork, and then you can just act as a supervisor to correct the mistakes, to proofreading, but you still need a human proofreader.
Yeah, actually, that's how I use it right now. In fact, I do use it quite a bit. I use DeepSeek. I use ChatGPT sometimes to do, and I use like Cursor to program. And so it's actually helped my productivity quite a bit. For a programmer, you'll notice that it's if you know how to use it correctly, it's pretty helpful. Um, but obviously, what we're seeing right now is that AI is actually replacing some of the need for entry-level programmers. So you're seeing a lot of layoffs right now in Microsoft, Meta, and possibly Google, but I think Microsoft and Meta are the main ones.
Speaking of Meta just recently, they spent $15 billion to acquire Scale AI, by led by Alexander Wang, the guy who basically run a digital sweatshop, like we talked about last time. This guy basically hired these Filipinos and Kenyans, and underpaying them, and have them label data for the big AI company. Now, why did Zuckerberg do that? Why did he spend $15 million for Scale AI?
Well, I think mainly because Zuckerberg is really desperate, and he so you got to understand the Silicon Valley types, they're very insulated in their bubble. The only world that they see is in the Silicon Valley bubble. So Zuckerberg, when he looked at the landscape like 2 or 3 years ago, he's like, "Oh, OpenAI is going not open anymore, and Google is not open, and Cloud is Anthropic is not open also. So I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make my thing open source, so everyone that doesn't trust their data going through Sam Altman is gonna use my Llama models." And then what happened? In the past year, both Qwen and DeepSeek, and now even Kimi have surpassed Llama models. And he's very desperate to catch up. So, and he is just throwing money, like, because Meta has a lot of money. So he's just throwing money out there, and he's throwing money on investing chips. He's throwing money on investing talent, hoping that he can catch up. and be state of the art, basically. Because he doesn't want to lose this AI race either. And it's obvious that Meta is the one trailing everyone else right now.
So he's okay. So he's just desperate and he's just grasping at straws. But how is Scale AI going to help him? I mean, my understanding of Scale AI, it's not really an AI company. I mean, it's basically they're doing the kind of the groundwork for the other AI companies, right? By data labeling.
Yeah, the entire thing is very confusing to me. Like some of his effort in paying like $100 million to recruit ethnic Chinese people from from OpenAI, that made a lot of sense, right? Like you need as many talent as possible, and Alexander Wang is definitely not a talent. He's just talker. But I think like in America, sometimes it's just about talking a big game. This is why this country is going to shit because we reward people for talking a big game and can't back it up.
That's
So
sadly true. So I wanted to one reason I wanted to bring you back to the show is to talk about the latest development in China. So what has changed in the last 6 months after DeepSeek emerged as like the big shock into the.
I think in general, uh, the Chinese AI models were always were pretty good by middle of last year already, but the Silicon Valley crowd hasn't caught on to it yet, so there wasn't this hype behind all that. The Qwen models when they came out were really good. Like they were very good for open source, and they were already surpassing Llama models by that point. And then the Chinese public also did not appreciate how good the Chinese models were. And the reason that Chinese models were behind weren't really because they were lacking computing power. It was because they just didn't go down this stretch. So like OpenAI released ChatGPT. It was only then that the Chinese AI labs and big tech decided we need to catch up to OpenAI. So like the American tech firms had like a 2 or 3 years advantage in the race basically. So uh, when DeepSeek came out, it was only then that Chinese public caught on to how good the domestic AI model was, and it's kind of sad that like Chinese people need outsiders to validate their own progress. But that's just been like a story of our culture for many years now. So what happened is when this came to China, DeepSeek came to China, it blew up basically over Chinese New Year's, right? And then we start seeing everyone incorporating the reasoning models, and people start finding out the reasoning models were really good. So then they start putting it into all their apps everywhere. And it was only at that time did we realize how much compute Chinese firms really had. Because we had the sanctions for since 2022, so people believed that they weren't getting these chips. And it was only at that time all these news came out about just how much transshipment was happening in the AI chips that China was getting them from Malaysia, Singapore, and I don't know, Thailand, Taiwan, like all these Asian countries, right? And it was shown like NVIDIA was making as much revenue out of like Asian regions where you think most of the chips are going to China from that, as they were making more money from that than America itself. And it was also at this point I really started tracking the data center build up in China, and I realized that the data centers were having a whole lot more computation power than I was expecting personally. And this is also um, the really eye-opening moment for me was when Tencent opened up their AI app Yuan, and it was from day one. It was offering up, uh, you know, service of DeepSeek reasoning models to everyone. And you can think of like Tencent has almost the entire Chinese population using it. So if they open this up in their AI app, there's gonna be a lot of users. And what I heard was actually this they had enough bandwidth to handle 8 million requests at the same time. I mean, can you imagine an American one having that? Like it's crazy amount of bandwidth, right? Um, so this told me that the Chinese big tech had a lot more AI chips than we thought. They were advancing quickly, and also um, DeepSeek was driving all the AI labs in China to move a lot faster. So we have the same Yuan, like we saw with EVs and solar panels and everything else. And that was also when we saw that renewed commitment by ByteDance, Alibaba making announcements on how much investment they're going to put into AI chips, and also Tencent. So basically, we have like 3 or 4 major players in China and a couple up and comers making really huge investment into AI. I mean, in the end, it's hard to say who the winners will be, but I would say that there's quite a few very competitive Chinese models. And for me, I personally love using Qwen because Qwen models, you can run them on your computer, you can run them on your edge devices, you can run them on your little AI robots if you want. And the Qwen 2.5 and all the Qwen multimodal models are state of the art. Like they're the best for what you can use them for, right? So if you have a let's say you're trying to make like a little AI robot in your home to play with your kids, and you don't want that information to go to OpenAI, then you want all the stuff to be handled by the AI robot. Qwen is like the ideal model for that because it can handle voice and the text at the same time, and it has different size models so that you can fit it according to the needs that you have. So what's happening underneath is that
Um, uh, Talk to me about Kimi, because this is a new development, right? Comments on our last show's video, people were saying, "Oh, Kimi is so good; it's so much better than DeepSeek." I'm just hearing about Kimi right now. This is a this is a new language model that just came out of China.
yeah, like they've been like kind of under the radar AI lab in China for a while now, and I think they actually came up with the last model they came up was actually pretty good, and there was a lot of um, positive reviews of their model from the AI community here in America, just because they came out with good papers. But DeepSeek took all the sucked all the attention away because it got hyped up by Silicon Valley, right? And
Yep.
they kind of deserved it. They're pretty smart guys and stuff like that. Uh, but it just shows like in China itself, and it's there are multiple AI labs who are doing great things, and the Kimi model that came out is actually, I haven't personally tried it myself, but it's like not a reasoning model. So it's like, and it's better than the most recent DeepSeek V3 model, which
Mhm.
is which was the best Chinese open source like non-reasoning model up to that point. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I still need to test it out. People say it's really good with coding and things like that, and possibly it could be really good for deep research. Um, but the Chinese labs, they really have to do something to stand out because there's so many good Chinese labs right now. Like OpenAI, a couple of weeks ago, they were spreading alarm about
Yeah.
智谱.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know exactly how this the Chinese word. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but yeah. So there's like multiple of them that are really good, and they have access to the data. They have enough compute power right now, from what I can tell, and they're all running on much lower cost basis than American competitors because they're not like paying $100 million for the top talents in China. So
That is so crazy, man. I mean, that's like when I find out that the compensation package they're offering. Well, that's just Zach, right? That's
Carl, you're
just
in the wrong industry.
seriously, right? I mean, but the 100 million compensation package that's just from Zuckerberg, right? Or is there more?
I think that I think that's like a Zuckerberg madness. We'll
Yeah,
see like what the top salaries other companies start offering, but like I'm sure like quite a few people are getting at least several millions a year, but 100 million is
yeah.
still
That's
it's
nuts.
still like kind of crazy actually to think about. That's like that's like 10 times more than probably what DeepSeek has spent during the entire lifetime of the firm or
Yeah.
something.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just wonder when this entire stuff is gonna blow up because there's the economics behind it is just not there at the moment.
Mm,
Unless you get into the hard product of it. They were saying all this time about like how they're gonna cure cancer and things like that from large language models, but you still that's you still need the firms to use it
mhm.
to help you to this that only speeds up product development.
Right.
AI helps you, but like there still need people paying for these things at the end,
Mm.
and there's just a lot of money going in, and NVIDIA is making a whole lot of money, but you know, I haven't seen a huge pickup in like usage from call centers or whatever.
I was just gonna ask, how is NVIDIA now the most valued company in the world when they're being cut off on like one of their biggest market, China? Is it all due to transshipment or because it's the AI bubble in United States?
I think it's a combination of that. I think the Chinese um, transshipment thing is going to continue for a while longer, and also I think people don't realize that this demand for computation just can't keep growing at this pace. People think that a lot of investors seem to think you just keep buying into it because this tree would just keep growing exponentially. But if you look at the actual demand for this from these third-party cloud providers, whether it's also the hyperscalers, they only need so much chips, and there's just I just don't see the it has to be like when you have someone on the upstream charging that much money, the revenue has to be generated on the downstream for it to be worth it eventually, right?
Hmm.
There's just a lot of hype money going in, and when are they going to generate the results? And at some point, I do think Huawei is going to take almost all the market share inside China once their software part of it gets sorted out. So the issue with Huawei right now is they the software support isn't as good as NVIDIA because a lot of the libraries, a lot of the support were designed with CUDA in mind. They're just things you can run on CUDA. Everyone supports CUDA when they write these Python libraries for AI inference, right? So until Huawei gets all the software part of it sorted out, there's always like a disadvantage in using Ascend chips versus CUDA chips. So uh, Huawei has to sort this out. So at some point, Chinese firms stops using NVIDIA chips as much, and at the same time, it's expanding all these like data centers globally where they were gonna use the full like Chinese Huawei stack of AI solutions, and I think a lot of the global South countries are going to use that um, and use the Chinese technology instead of the more expensive NVIDIA technology.
Speaking of that, um, recently there's a Germany just pushed for the ban of DeepSeek, right?
Yeah, I I mean, a lot of these things I don't think really matters all that much. Um, I think at the end of the day, um, there's the app component of it, and there's the API component of it, and there's the application component of it. And it is possible that that just due to national security fears or whatever, the American apps will, for AI, at least in Western countries, will always be dominant because there's the entire TikTok, story behind that. Like, there's always going to be national security fear mongering going on. But uh, I think what's going to happen is if your industry doesn't use AI in these countries, you're going to fall behind. And what we're seeing is outside of China and US, AI adoption isn't at the same level, I would say. So the industries that are in these countries are already falling behind. And they have to make a decision at some point on whether they use the closed source American model versus the open source Chinese model, where they have full control over it. And I feel like a lot of countries will probably end up picking the closed source model just because they have they political reason, for geopolitical reasons than anything else, right? So, but there's still pretty large market out there for the Chinese models, just because inherently developers like to work with open source models,
Fair,
right?
fair.
And I think all the future AI robots, as I said earlier in the show, are going to be made in China with most likely Chinese AI models. That's my opinion on this matter.
Was the temporary Trump ban on CUDA and other AI design software to China, did that have an impact?
I think probably not, because the EDAs, have your once you have your design finalized and sent to the foundries, they can just produce the chips. They don't really need additional permissioning to do those. But if you're trying to design new chips and you don't have the EDAs, then it becomes a problem for you. So I think it was an annoyance, but not for the AI. Like, it doesn't, like, Huawei would have already finished its design of that cent, and it's all manufactured in China anyways. And they also you do have EDAs for 7 nanometer processes inside China. The problem was a lot of the fabs inside China are still using American EDAs, because um, it's just there's always a switching cost when you go from your current software and hardware to a new software hardware, right? So people don't necessarily do it until they have to do it. So I think there's going to be a greater shift away from American EDAs as a result of this. Because I think, like, shifting software is still easier than shifting hardware.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, like, I guess what I meant was, did that temporary ban light a fire under the Chinese companies in their decision to possibly switch over to Huawei software? You know.
It's hard to say. So you would think it would, but I think it's probably going to take another year or so for us to really tell how much of a shift that is,
Hmm.
because we would end up seeing what normally happens is this. Um, these companies, they have their earnings call,
Hmm.
and then the earnings call, they will ask them questions about different regions, and then they will say, like, oh, we saw this year that we suddenly start seeing our Chinese revenue dropping because we believe they found a local supplier for it, and that's happening pretty gradually right now. Pretty gradually, a lot of the American equipment makers and Japanese ones are still making a lot of their revenues in China, but for semiconductor. But the thing is, it's because Chinese market is growing so fast that the domestic suppliers just can't. They can expand 40-50% a year, and there's still a huge market. So you're seeing like I don't know if you've seen it in the recent months. There was a SiCarrier. They're like basically they're one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing equipment makers in China now, and they weren't really they didn't really even advertise their product until globally until a few months ago, but a lot of the Chinese fabs were already using them, and there's a lot of players like that inside China, but it still takes time for the entire industry to develop, right? We want them to grow overnight, but you can't go from 1 billion revenue to 100 billion revenue in a year. It just takes time to grow.
That's fair. That's